You probably already know. Accordions are very popular in the United States up until about Elvis Presley time. And then Elvis Presley pretty much did away with the accordion for a long time. I'm trying to find the sweet spot between me and the feedback over here about this. All right. I've been referred to as soft-spoken, so if you have any difficulty hearing me, just give me the international sign for it to speak louder, and I'll do my best, okay? My father was from around here. He grew up someplace between Rochester and Drakesboro. His name was Chester Brown Knight. He was brother to Don's mother, Esther Knight, and they had numerous other siblings. My mother was from Ohio County. Her name was Ethel Joseph Tilford. And I'm telling you this just to give you kind of a background. My mother and father were married shortly after World War II. My father was in the Navy from a fairly early age. He spent 3.5 years in a Japanese prisoner of war camp. He spent a lot of time at sea. He was in the U.S. Navy, and as a sailor, he spent most of his time at sea. In fact, I was 4 years old before I ever got to spend more than a week at a time with him. And we were living in Germany at the time. So my brother had an older brother. His name was Tommy, and a younger sister named Susan. And we lived in Bremerhaven, Germany. And that was the first time my family got to live together. Shortly after we got there, my father brought home an accordion for me, and he brought home an accordion for my brother. He said, here's your accordions. Your teacher will be here later on this week. Start learning how to play it. And so we did. My father was musical by the ear tradition. You'll see a picture of him. This is my mother and father, by the way, shortly after we got to Bremerhaven, Germany. My father played mandolin and fiddle and piano, but strictly by ear. And I'm awfully proud of my parents. So I grew up in a Navy family, and I went on to join the military myself, and I spent off and on about 25 years in the Army. 12 of that I spent overseas. I spent 8 years in Germany, 2 years in Panama, 2 years in Kenya. So I'm going to talk just a little bit about the background of the military service. Most of the military service in the United States started up about the time of the Continental Congress in about 1775, 76. Not too long before this church was established. Think about it. What, 1797, 98, thereabouts? So the United States was fairly new. There had been people there from Europe for a long time, but this is quite a while back. And so the Army and the Navy and the Marines and the Coast Guard actually got their earliest starts back about the time of the Continental Congress. We typically think of the Army and the Navy and the Marines as being the armed forces or the military, and we think of the Coast Guard as being, well, what do we think of the Coast Guard? They're actually started up as a fleet of protectors for the merchant vessels in the United States. They're involved in law enforcement, so the only armed forces branch is involved in law enforcement in the United States. They serve now in rescue and drug traffic interdiction and a variety of other things. During wartime, they go to war. So the Coast Guard actually got it started back a long time ago also. And then I didn't forget the Air Force, but the Air Force actually grew out of the Army in about 1947. There had been aircraft in military conflicts since the Civil War, actually. They had observation units back in those days. And those were the earliest aircraft that were involved in military conflicts. So that's just a little bit about the history of the military. I'd like to say that a lot has been said about the devotion and the sacrifices of military people. I think of the military sacrifices as being the ones for the people who have lost their lives, who have had to spend time in prison, or have lost a limb, or have had their families torn apart. So that's really, from a service person's point of view, that's the cost of military service. I've been very fortunate. So, I don't know what else to say. I'd like to start to play some of these service songs on the accordion. There's Anchors Away from the Navy. Anybody here from the Navy? Anybody have a Navy background? Do we have any Marines, former Marines? Any Marines? Any Coast Guard? Anybody from the Army? Army. How about the Air Force? Air Force. All right, and I don't want to leave anybody out. If I've overlooked any branch of the service, there's the Public Health Service and the National Aeronautic and Oceanic Administration, or I get that confused all the time, Oceanic Aeronautic Administration. And they're actually part of our military, or armed services, uniform services. Anybody from the health service or the NAO, OA, that's it. Anyway, all right. If you know these old songs, hardly anybody sings them anymore. Anchors Away, the Caisson song. Caisson song was written by John Phillips. The music was written by John Phillips. It was, the words were some poetry by a field artillery officer a long time ago. It had the Marine hymn. And we have, there's a Coast Guard song, and there's the Air Force song. So I'll just start playing them. If you want to, sing along. Right? I'll probably start, I'll get louder when I get closer. I'll probably start with Anchors Away. So those are a few of the songs that I grew up with. I'm sure that the majority of you grew up singing those in school. Back in the old days, we used to have sing time. In third and fourth grade, we'd sing all the old songs down by the old mill stream, all that sort of thing. We'd sing those songs. You don't hear them anymore. I enjoyed that part a lot. The last thing I want to present is Eternal Father Strong to Save. It's hymn number 562 in the hymn book. And I'd like for you to join in and sing the first and the second verses of it. I'm going to talk just a little bit about Eternal Father. This is also known as the Navy hymn. It was played and sung at the time of the death of Franklin Delano Roosevelt. It was also played for the funeral procession of John Fitzgerald Kennedy. It's called the Navy hymn because it was written, the the words for this were inspired by the proceedings that visited Paul, that are recounted in Acts 27 and 28. Paul was on a ship headed for prison or some punishment that he had brought down on himself. And the boat that he was in fell into troubled waters, and it basically crashed on an island called Melita. Back in the old days it was called Melita, now it's called Malta. So if you look in your hymn book, you'll see that the hymn is titled Eternal Father, Strong to Save, but underneath it is the word Melita. And the words were written by one man, and the music, Melita, was written by another man to go along with the words. So this hymn has a strong reference to Christ and the teachings of Christ, and to the faith in God. And it also it rings a strong chord to anybody who's ever been at sea. Would you stand?